CCSN podcast. I'm Chris here with Chase. Chase, how are you doing on this fine morning?
I'm doing incredible. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, let's start it off with the NFL this following week. What was some things you liked? What were some things you saw, didn't like? Tell me about it.
I'm going to start off with the Pat Steelers game. We actually had a conversation about this, and we were talking about how these games used to be so much fun and how it used to be like the Pat Steelers. Every time that was the game to watch. That was one of the most boring games I've ever watched in my career. But like, honestly, this
Your
whole
sports
game,
watching career.
yeah, it really was. And the Steelers offense was abysmal. Their offensive line was completely terrible. Mac Jones, on the other hand, he got a fairly good performance from his offensive line, still couldn't do anything. Nelson Aguilar was the biggest star in this game. And, it's Nelson Aguilar. The only thing I wanted to say is for Najee Harris fantasy owners, might be time to panic a little bit. That offensive line looks absolutely horrible. And I don't know what they do to make this offense look better in spite of bringing in Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Steelers fans think that's just going to be an immediate answer. And there's so many problems wrong with the Steelers offense right now. Najee Harris doesn't look like the guy he was supposed to be yet. And as you said, that offensive line looks like a complete disaster right now. But talking about the Patriots side of it, I watched the game replay and I was watching it on Red Zone a little bit. Mac Jones should have had 3 interceptions. He had 3 dropped interceptions, and if it wasn't for Nelson Aguilar, he probably wouldn't have even had a touchdown pass.
That was not a good
Aguilar,
throw.
It was not a good throw. It was just an extremely good athletic play by Aguilar, and shout out him for that. But yeah, as you said, this was kind of the mid bowl. If we're talking about if we're being honest, yeah, I don't think anyone was really looking forward to this game other than Steelers Pats fans. And as you said, I mean, my whole life it was kind of oh, the Steelers Patriots play this week. What a great game! But now it was Steelers Patriots play this week. So 2 teams that I really have not a lot of faith in coming into the season, and especially not right now. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. You think they're going to roll with Kenny Pickett eventually down the line?
I think you have to. Mitch Trubisky is not the guy.
Which week are you thinking? I think by week
11.
I think they're going to give him 5 weeks.
I think it'll probably
5 weeks.
Yeah, I can see it probably around that week 8 to 11 range. I don't think they've got a bit of an easier schedule coming up, so I think they pull out a few wins here. But if they start going, they lose 3-4 in a row, Steelers fans are going to be crying for Kenny Pickett, and I don't blame them. I don't think Kenny Pickett's this great player, but watching your team lose games while you have a quarterback who's 24 years old sitting on your bench, it's not fun, especially a guy that you drafted in the first round.
Yeah, and I think especially, if they go 2-6 to start the year off or 2-5, something like that, roll with the young guy. It can't get any worse. And I mean, you drafted him first round, as you said. He's 24. He's not 22 years old. So, I mean, when's he gonna start? 25, 26 years old? That's not what you're looking for out of your first round guy.
Exactly. That's what confuses me a little bit about the Steelers situation. They were 1, maybe 2 pieces away from actually trying to put together a competent team, the one key piece being the quarterback. And they went out, they got the quarterback that they wanted. I don't necessarily agree with the quarterback that they got, but they're not even giving him a shot to play. They list him at the 3rd string on the depth chart right now. I don't understand the way that they're using Kenny Pickett. He's not the same as a guy coming out like a Justin Herbert who was 21 years old and who was young and ready to, or that was the guy that you wanted to develop. Malik Willis this year is one of the guys I'd compare that to. But no, he's just an older player who was labeled as one of the most ready players, and he's just not playing yet.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we both know we aren't the biggest Kenny Pickett guy coming into the year, but he looked decent in preseason, and I think if a couple more weeks of Mitchell Trubisky looking below average, you got to throw him in there. I mean, he looked pretty good in preseason. Again, me and you discussed, we have our opinions about preseason. It's not really the deciding factor, but in week 6, week 7, if you guys are not looking good, you're again have more losses than wins. Throw the rookie in there. This is why you drafted him.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with that.
They're both not really entertaining teams to me, but we'll see what happens down the line. They're out. My last comment about the Steelers is they're wasting that wide receiver core right now.
Oh, there's 4 wide receivers that they're wasting. It's incredible how bad it is. every single one of those wide receivers, I feel like if they were on another team, would absolutely shine. Like imagine pick one of those guys and just drop them onto the Green Bay Packers and imagine how
was
many
just gonna
numbers
say,
they put up. Imagine Chase Claypool with Aaron Rodgers. And Chase
imagine
Claypool
Deontay.
is getting hated. Deontay too. Everybody thinks Chase Claypool is a terrible wide receiver, whatever. He is a deep threat wide receiver who had a quarterback and still has a quarterback who can't throw the ball over 30 yards down the field accurately. Like there's just not a way for him to show his skill set on his current team. He really needs to leave.
Yeah, I think he'll be a trade target coming up soon. And if I'm another team looking at him, I'm looking at low value pick, high ceiling wide receiver. I'm going for it. And a lot of Steelers fans hate Chase Claypool for some reason too, which is just
Well, because he celebrated
weird.
at one time. He celebrated the first down when the game was coming down.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Steelers. They're a weird team right now. Can't really find their direction. But another team in the AFC that looks literally perfect, the Buffalo Bills. They literally look like a Madden team playing on rookie mode right now. They completely embarrassed the Tennessee Titans on Monday night. And after halftime, that game literally just went to complete shit. I mean, Stephon Diggs almost came back and put 50 points on me on fantasy football, so I was sweating that a little bit. And Josh Allen is, as Von Miller said, he is looking like the straight MVP right now. And
speaking of Von Miller, way too much way too much gas in the tank for somebody who's 33 and he's been in the league for what, 10 years, 11 years. He looks way too good for that. Like, shout out Von Miller. He is an all-time talent.
He's so shifty. I mean, I don't know if you've been watching any of his tape. The guy literally looks like he's 25 years old still. He's lost no step. It's nuts. If the Bills stay healthy, I don't know.
And that's what
it's
kind
going
of
to be
makes
hard for anybody to beat them.
That's what makes the offseason process so funny to me. Like this whole time, like right after the playoffs ended, everybody and their mother was like, yeah, the Bills next year, watch out for the Bills. And then as you keep moving through the offseason like format, it just gets boring. Like you don't want to be like, yeah, the Bills. Like now everybody thinks the Bills, so it can't be the Bills, right? No, it's the Bills, man. They are legit. They are good. This whole offense is loaded. The whole defense is loaded now. And like you said, if they stay healthy, I think they're going to cakewalk to 13, 14, maybe even 15 wins. Come playoff times, it's just going to come down to can Josh Allen get past Patrick Mahomes? He was so damn close last season. I don't see any reason why not.
The funny thing is, too, on Monday night, they put up all those points without Gabriel Davis either. I mean, it was just straight Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen show. I think it was incredible. And I mean, their defense isn't even fully healthy right now, which is kind of crazy. So look out for the Bills. I'm actually looking forward to the Miami versus Bills game this week. I think the Bills are going to win, but I think this is a true test for Miami this week. If they can stay competitive in this game, I think Miami's legit. I think they were a playoff team coming into this year, but this is a true test for Mike McDaniel in this offense. One thing I do want to say, though, about Tua, as we talk about all the time, the recency bias is crazy. I mean, right now you see Tua for MVP. Everyone's like, apologize to Tua. He has to do it for more than 1 week. And as it's trending on Twitter right now, Mitchell Trubisky threw 6 touchdowns one game too. So, I mean, you got to relax a little bit. And my whole point is Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill make this guy's life a hell of a lot easier. That's really it.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that game is, first of all, I want to say that Mike McDaniels, he absolutely shocked me with the way how great that offense looked. They were able to, the way he used Waddle and Tyreek Hill to open up the middle of the field for the rest of the guys on the team was so beautiful. Like, and even not even just for the rest of the guys, he would use Hill to go deep, open the middle of the field for Waddle. That's how Waddle had almost 200 yards. And he's both of them are so good after the catch. You get them in that open space, especially against the Ravens linebackers, it's game over. So like that kind of stuff is, with Mike McDaniel's scheme, is something that I'm very excited for. And I think that can make this offense have a very high floor. But like you were saying with Tua, what I think gets lost in the NFL sometimes and with NFL fans, which they do understand in college. I saw this point made, I can't remember exactly who made it, but in college, everybody's fine with saying, yeah, we're looking at the process. If a guy is throwing for like 425 yards and 6 touchdowns, but the ball is not accurate, we're like, okay, yeah, we can separate the result from the way that it's happening. Like the guy's not throwing an accurate ball. We don't care if it's being caught deep. Like it's just, you want to judge the process, not the result. And that's what's going on with Tua right now. A lot of those deep balls that were caught for touchdowns, they were short. They weren't on target. Like the one to Tyreek Hill, he had to stop very short of the end zone and hustle out for that ball. That's the kind of stuff that I don't really like with Tua Tagovailoa, and that scares me moving forward. But like I said, Mike McDaniel's scheme opens up a lot of the field, and if he can just hit that and take that, there's going to be a lot of wins this season for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, as I said coming into the year, I think if Miami started 2-2, that they were going to look pretty damn good, and they started 2-0, made that fantastic comeback. The only thing that kind of worries me about Miami right now is their defense kind of looked really bad against the Ravens. Lamar Jackson was all over them. The run game was killing them, and they got to tighten some things up over there. But that offense looked great, and I still think Miami is going to be one of the 2 wild card teams out of the AFC, and I'm really excited about it. And as I said on Twitter, and as we just said like 500 times, that offensive scheme is just beautiful. If you ever want to watch this really, really beautiful football, just look up Mike McDaniel's offensive scheme. And he's got the shades. So, I mean, he just gets a few extra points for that.
I'm a little bit nervous to see what happens now that people that they get tape on it. Like how do teams adjust to that? I'm not a coach, obviously, so I'm not sure how exactly these offensive or these defensive coordinators are going to adjust to this. But I imagine they're going to start bringing down a safety into the box, which is going to start opening up something deep, which is how we're really going to see if Tua's a good quarterback. Can he hit those whole deep shots 60, 50 yards down the field when Tyreek Hill is bursting open against one safety because they've got to bring the other one down to guard Waddle or vice versa? Can Tua do that? And honestly, from what I've seen throughout this whole process with Tua and what I saw against the Ravens, he's not going to be able to do that. So I think that that's kind of the way that these coordinators are looking at it and the way they're going to attack the Dolphins from now on. And I'm very interested to see how Mike McDaniels figures that out. Do they start just going more to a vertical run scheme where they're trying to break the big plays that way with Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, maybe bring Hill and Waddle into the backfield? How are they going to neutralize the safety in the box?
I think Mike McDaniel is going to figure it out. I think, as I said, I think he's probably a top 2 offensive mind in the game right now. And if I need anyone to figure that out, I want Mike McDaniel doing it. I mean, he has 2 of the fastest guys in the league, and I know it's only been 2 weeks, but that point has just been proven. When you have 2 guys like that, defenses really don't know how to adjust to it because you got to be, looking for the deep ball, middle of the field, everything, especially with these 2 guys. But if Tua can prove that he can hit this deep ball, I think it's a top 3 offense in the league, no doubt. But Tua still has a lot to prove with this deep ball. I mean, as you said, a lot of the deep balls he threw against the Ravens, Tyreek Hill did have to adjust, and the first half was not good. Like, it was just straight up not good by Tua. And I'm not a Tua hater, but I'm a Tua. I'm real with it. I think he can be a decent system QB or a little above average. I think he can be a really good game manager, but again, yeah, show me with the arm first, especially with these 2 wide receivers.
This is a guy people were tanking for. Tank for Tua. That was real. Like, I just find that very funny.
Yeah, and it was it was real for like 2 years too. Like, that's how much the hype was.
Yep. I think that's kind of a good segue into the Niners game where Trey Lance he's done for the year, and that is the difference between, and this is why I feel like it's a good segue, the difference between Mike McDaniels and Kyle Shanahan is the player management, the personnel management. Shanahan has absolutely no idea how to manage people. Like, he's a great offensive mind. He knows the X's and O's of football in and out, but he just can't manage people. We see it time and time again. The first indication was with Dante Pettis in 2017. They drafted the dude in the 2nd round. He had so much potential, sky-high potential. He just never saw the field. Niners fans were freaking out. Like, why is this guy not seeing the field? They thought, well, it must be he just sucks. And then you go forward a year. You got Brandon Ayuk, or it's a few years, obviously. Brandon Ayuk, same exact treatment. Then you go forward. Trey Sermon, same exact treatment. They've got another guy on the roster this year. can't remember his name, but Brandon Ayuk said, yeah, now Shanahan's picking on him now. So we've seen this kind of stuff with Shanahan before, and now you get to see a real life example of it playing out with Jimmy G and Trey Lance. Kyle Shanahan did nothing to kind of get the team behind Trey Lance. He kept Jimmy G on that roster, which was right now it's playing out to be a positive because Trey Lance got that freak injury. But in the long run, I really think that hurts your team because we've seen the ceiling with Jimmy G as a quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. It's not a Super Bowl. So every single year, they're just going to be good in the regular season and not in the Super Bowl every year, but they're going to lose in the playoffs every year because Jimmy G is not a guy that can win you playoff games. And like we've seen this before. This is nothing new. It's why they went out and they drafted a quarterback at number 3 overall. Like this is the exact reason that they did that. But the whole issue is Shanahan did not do his job as a head coach to get the locker room on one page.
Yeah, the offense looked completely different with Jimmy G on the field. They looked more alive. They looked more electric. I mean, when Jimmy G threw his first touchdown pass, they all celebrated around him like he was a god or something. And I mean, I like Jimmy G, obviously. It was a little weird seeing him smile though after that Trey Lance injury. But as you said, they're not really rallying it around Trey Lance. Didn't really look like it, and his future's it kind of sucks right now for Trey Lance. I mean, what if Jimmy G does take this team again? I don't know, NFC Championship, let's say. What do you think happens there? I mean, the 49ers fans would not be behind starting Trey Lance again next year.
Nope.
So, I mean, this could be a situation where Trey Lance finds another team in a few years. And I don't really think I was going to say that, but how old is Jimmy G now? 30, 31 years old, something like that. So, he could still be the QB for this team for 3 more years if the team's really pushing for it, which is kind of sad because, I mean, as you just said with the Mike McDaniel comparison, imagine Trey Lance in a Mike McDaniel-led offense. I think the rushing ability, just every single ability that he has, he would flourish in something like that. And that's not trying to shift back to Miami, but that's exactly why I think that Miami's going to go out there if Lamar Jackson becomes available, because you add him to that offense, I think it's the best in the league. I mean, I'm not trying to go back to that, but Mike McDaniel is a god when it comes to using his players effectively. And Kyle Shanahan, as you said, he didn't really seem like he was really bought in on Trey Lance. And as a second-year quarterback taking over for Jimmy G, especially a guy who seen success with the 49ers, he never won the big game, but it's hard, especially when your QB or your coach isn't 100% behind you. And it's just so weird because you drafted him 3rd overall. It wasn't like this guy was a 3rd-round pick who looked good in training camp. No, you traded up for him to get this guy, and it looks a little weird right now.
It's not even like Kyle Shanahan wasn't 100% in. Every move that Shanahan made in the public eye felt like it was against Trey Lance. Like the Mac Jones pick the Mac Jones talk at number 3 overall, that was ridiculous. Mac Jones was never going to go with number 3 overall. So why did that have to leak? It should not have leaked, but he leaked that to, I think it was Garofalo. And that's a guy who gets his sources from like the guy. Like he's very tuned in. So that's why I feel like there's a lot of truth to that rumor about Mac Jones. And that's been proven going forward that Shanahan was in on Mac Jones. And that's the kind of stuff that Shanahan does often, it feels like. There's the keeping Jimmy G on the roster when there was really no reason for him to be on the roster. All the other personnel decisions that I've mentioned before. And I ranked Shanahan in my top 3 coaches before this season. I've had to take a look and evaluate that. The X's and O's, yes, they're still there. He is still a genius when it comes to football, but there is a lot more that goes into coaching than that. And he misses a couple of key factors when it comes to player personnel management.
Yeah, it's definitely something he has to work on. I feel bad for Trey Lance. I hope the guy recovers smoothly, but let's see how the season plays out with 49ers.
I'll tell you how it'll play out. They're going to win 12 games and they're going to lose in the divisional because Jimmy G can't throw more than 20 yards.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
The one thing that, I'm not trying to make a positive out of this, but I think George Kittle's production is going to go up a little more. I think they're just going to go back to the roots with that. And, it's just weird. I'm really curious to see how this plays out because, as you said, you think they're going to lose in the divisional, but like, what if they lose in the NFC Championship again? Like, do you think they move on, or do you think like what do you think they do?
I
Because
feel like it's going to have
there's
to
all
be
this
Jimmy G.
pushback. There's all this pushback. I mean, like I think that too, but like there's so much pushback from 49ers fans. Like even before the season, they were so against starting Trey Lance, which I've never really seen with a lot of franchises. I mean, I feel like when your
I've seen
franchise
it
drafts a
once.
quarterback, Donovan McNabb, is
No,
that what you're going to talk about?
no,
Who?
it was Nick Foles and Carson Wentz.
Oh yeah,
That
true.
is the almost identical. I know Carson Wentz was coming back from an injury, but Nick Foles is, and here's the difference. Nick Foles won the big game. Nick Foles won the
Yeah,
Super Bowl. Jimmy G never did that, which is why it's so crazy to me that Niners fans are so behind this guy. He lost them a Super Bowl single-handedly. The Emmanuel Sanders was open deep down the field. He had him. He could have just hit him in stride and won the game. He didn't do it. Like, if I were a Niners fan, and I know that maybe I'm a little bit more of a negative fan when it comes to my team, I'd be pissed. I would not like this guy. He cost a Super Bowl is what you're playing the game for. I'm not playing the game to win 12 games in the regular season, 13 games in the regular season. This is a historic franchise with guys like Joe Montana and Steve Young in their past, and they're going to stick with Jimmy G just because they could win a few games. They should. This is the Niners. They should have a different standard than everybody else. They should not be like the Packers trying to win every regular season game or the Browns just trying to make the playoffs. No, they should be trying to win the Super Bowl, which is what they did with going out and getting Trey Lance. But then they half-assed the Trey Lance thing. They did not go full in on the guy, and that is what cost them and the injury. But I feel like it was kind of trending that way anyway.
yeah. I thought with a couple more. The thing was, I just feel like Trey Lance, like, was listening to all these negatives, and I think it was honestly affecting his game.
How
If
can it
I'm being
not?
completely honest, and I mean, it would affect my game too. So I feel bad for the guy. I hope. If I'm being honest, I kind of hope he gets traded and balls out for another team, but we'll see what happens down the line. Um, Another thing I just want to point out: the Bengals. How do you feeling about this team right now? I mean, this offensive line looks so bad right now. Joe Burrow, I feel bad for him again, but Joe Burrow has not looked that good. I mean, he had a really good drive at the end of the Cowboys game, but he's shown me really nothing phenomenal. And this is a guy who people had in their top 3 MVP, top 5 quarterbacks, which I thought was a little ridiculous. But what's your opinion on that? I think they're going into MetLife this week, and if I was going to give a hot take, I think the Jets beat them.
There's a couple layers to what's going on with the Bengals. First of all, Zach Taylor has been incredibly unimpressive. Like, no offensive ingenuity, which is weird because we saw a little bit of that peeking its head out at the end of last season. We saw some of the trick plays from Zach Taylor, which kind of was what got me to say maybe he's not the worst coach in the league. But from the start of this season, he's not calling any or designing anything that I like. But the thing is, Joe Burrow is the one calling the plays at the end of the day. Joe Burrow is really the one leading this team. And that's all the reports have been that Joe Burrow is the guy basically running the offense. And if you look at their snap charts, 2% of their plays have been play action. That is not good. Not in this league. You need that kind of motion. You need to get these defenses off of you need to confuse these defenses. Every time Joe Burrow lines up under center, they're running the ball. It's exactly what he did at LSU, which is why he's doing it now. But he needs to start adjusting. And a good take that I saw was Theo Ash actually compared it to Aaron Rodgers in his early years. Aaron Rodgers did not have that kind of. He had Mike McCarthy as a coach, right? Was not a good coach. Was not drawing up any great plays that were good for him, and he was in charge of the offense. So he was just running what he felt comfortable with. Now there are some holes with that, and sometimes you'll see a stagnant offense because not everybody is that kind of Aaron Rodgers level talent, Joe Burrow level talent at their position. So the offense gets a bit stagnant, and then that's part of it. And then, like you were saying, the offensive line has not been good. So a few things need to happen here. Zach Taylor needs to either figure it out or get fired. One of those two, I think getting fired at the end of the year is probably more likely. And Joe Burrow needs to kind of take a step back and realize that it's about time to grow the offense a little bit. And going back to the Rodgers comparison, that didn't happen until they brought in LaFleur, who said, "Hey, Aaron Rodgers, screw you. You guys did not make the playoffs back-to-back years, you need a new offense. And he came in and implemented a new offense, and Rodgers worked his way around that. So while I think Joe Burrow, he's got the mental ability and the talent of one of these all-time great quarterbacks, he needs to figure that part out. He needs to get more refined in his mental processing ability and getting a better coach at the end of the day. So there's, like I said, there's a few layers here, but it's not all bad for the Bengals. There's a way to fix that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying Joe Burrow isn't good anymore or anything, but the offense just looks very plain right now. It's very predictable. I feel like the defense knows what they're trying to do with the ball. And as I said in the beginning of the season, I really just do not trust Zach Taylor to elevate this roster to its full potential. He got that contract extension last year, which I think was ridiculous. I mean, yeah, he had a good run, but the defense had a good run. The offense did not look that good in the playoffs last year, if I'm being honest. Yeah, they gotta figure some stuff out. I think they should fire Zach Taylor. Do I think they're gonna fire Zach Taylor? Absolutely not. They held on to Marvin Lewis for like 40 years, 50 years. So I mean, I feel like the Bengals are just a very bad franchise who got lucky, and they're gonna waste some of this talent on this roster. I truly believe that.
I agree with the fact that the Bengals, yeah, they're a terribly run franchise. They don't have an indoor practice facility. They're the only team in the league without an indoor practice facility. Their guys have to walk across a highway to get to their practice facility every single day. Go to Cincinnati and you go to that highway. You should see the Bengals players walking every day. I mean, I think it's kind of crazy, but they tried to fix that. I mean, they started work on a new indoor practice facility this offseason. As soon as Joe Burrow got into the building, I started to see some of that changing a little bit. And now it's starting to go the other way, it feels like. We're starting to see that stuff, them revert to the old Bengals, it feels like. And especially with some of the moves that they're making or moves that they didn't make defensively this offseason, they stayed fairly the same defensively. And the saying is, if you didn't get better in the offseason, you got worse. And we're starting to see that a little bit with the Bengals. But on the other side of things, I think the Cowboys might have just saved their season with that win. Starting off the season 0-2 is a complete, like, you're done. But to win a game with Cooper Rush starting at quarterback against a good team, you've got a little something there. And you get Dak Prescott back. I think they're talking about week 4, week 5. I think that there's maybe a way that they finish above 500 still. We've talked about this for a while. The Cowboys are not really a playoff contender this season. They're not anywhere near where they were before. But I think that they're not going to be in a top 5 pick contention like some people are talking.
The thing that people underestimated with Cooper Rush is this guy's been on the Dallas Cowboys roster for like 5 years now. He knows the system. He knows how to run it. And he did not look bad. I mean, he was hitting it. He was hitting his guys. I cannot think of his name right now, but one guy that he's been constantly working with, Noah Brown, they look phenomenal. They looked like a dynamic duo out there. He had over 100 yards, I believe, and a touchdown. So, I mean, you can't knock on Cooper Rush. The defense looks phenomenal. Dan Quinn is the best defensive coordinator in football, hands down. Micah Parsons looks phenomenal. And as you said, if they can string out maybe one more win with Cooper Rush before Dak Prescott comes back, maybe 2 more, I definitely agree with you. I think they're getting Michael Gallup back this week. His workload's not going to be that good or that much, obviously, yet. But obviously, he's going to work his way up. There's really no doubt about that. But they definitely can save their season. But Mike McCarthy is just a bigger Zach Taylor to me. Like, they just both suck. And I think that's what's holding them back. I think if you give Dak Prescott an elite head coach, I think it would do wonders for them. Because I really do like Dak Prescott, if I'm being honest. I think he's a very good quarterback, but he's just been damaged with terrible head coaches. I mean, he went from Jason Garrett to Mike McCarthy. I mean, he might have the worst head coach trend in football right now.
Yeah, and despite that, he's put up some of the most ridiculous offensive numbers out of any quarterback, and that gets like negated sometimes because everyone's like, "Oh, look at his weapons. Well, look at his coach. Look at who he's playing with." So yeah, I do agree. Dak Prescott, he's a fairly underrated quarterback. I'd rank him around the 8th to 10th area in the league. Where he's a guy that can start for you and win a championship if he's under the right situation. But looking at the Cowboys moving forward for these next, it looks like they're going to be without Dak for 2, maybe 3 more weeks. They've got the Giants next week, who I feel like are a very fraudulent 2-0 team. Then they've got the Commanders the week after, who I think are terrible. And then they've got the Rams. The Rams are not as good as they were last season, and that's not a completely unwinnable game. We just saw the Rams almost lose to the Falcons. Probably should have lost to the Falcons, who are very bad football team.
The Rams almost pulled the Falcons. I mean, they were making that comeback. But as you were talking about the Giants remind me of last year's Panthers. I mean, they come into the season, they have this. I mean, I like the ball though. I'll be honest, but if the Giants are not good, they beat two bad teams, and that's not impressive. If the Giants were to go in, you said they play the Cowboys this week.
Yep.
If they beat the Cowboys, they look good on offense. Then I'll be a little more impressed because that Cowboys defense has looked very, very good so far.
It's at home though for the Giants. Even then, it's a primetime game at home, Monday Night Football. So even then, I feel like they might just find a way to fraudulently win that game too. Because I mean, a primetime game against Cooper Rush, what a better game to win! Like that is the type of game that you can win if you're the Giants. But
what's your prediction with that game though? Like, what do you think? Have you just shot in the dark?
I'm gonna go with the Giants. Yeah, the Giants are probably gonna win. I can't pick the Giants to start 3-0. It's got to be the Cowboys. I'm sorry, because I'm looking at Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. The Giants at 2-0, they're 31st in passing yards, and they've taken 9 sacks in 2 weeks. And that's Daniel Jones hasn't fumbled once yet, which is a miracle for the guy. So and it's not like his pocket presence is getting any better. Like I just said, 9 sacks against not two fairly okay defensive lines. The Tennessee Titans they've got one player on their defensive line that's good. Harold Landry didn't play, so that doesn't count. They've got Jeffrey Simmons. That's it. He's an interior guy. And then they played the Panthers last week, who they have Brian Burns and literally nobody else off the edge. So I feel like once you start playing good defenses, this offense is going to look absolutely terrible. And Richie James is their leading receiver right now. They've got so much invested into their passing offense just for Richie James to lead the team with 5 catches for 51 yards. I mean, Kadarius Toney, he's amazing. Like he's so talented. He plays 2 snaps a game. Kenny Golladay, $20 million, 2 catches a game. Sterling Shepard, 2 games a season. So there's just so many guys on this roster that are names but aren't producing for them, which is why I feel like when you look at them and then you see 2-0, you might get a little bit more excited than you probably should be, because this is not a team that's going to make any noise this season. I could see them losing 10 more games this season.
I think the other deciding factor with this is I love Saquon Barkley. I'll put that out there. But I think he's going to burn out quickly. I mean, he looked different from week 1 to week 2. And the way they're planning on using him, I don't think it's sustainable. I think that if they keep using him like this, it could lead to another injury. I mean, I know a couple of his injuries were freak accidents, but I don't know. With a guy like Saquon who has his injury history, I don't know if it's sustainable running this type of offense. And as you said, Daniel Jones is not that good. They're paying Kenny Golladay, I think, $15 million more, and he's literally just not part of that offense. That's one thing. A lot of people thought it had to do with like character issues and stuff, which might have to do with part of that, but they just don't think he's part of the scheme. Like that's like straight up what they said, and that's kind of ridiculous. They have Toney, as you said, on offense, who literally looks like he could be a future star, not using him. So I think the Giants, as I said, are last year's Panthers. You know, maybe they start 3-0. Maybe they'll have that underdog feeling till week 5, and then it will just come down crumbling and right back to reality. Until the Giants find a real quarterback, they're not a real team. And that's just the end of the day. You have to always have a good quarterback to grab my attention in the NFL.
Yeah, 100% agree. And we saw the Panthers make a mistake around this time last season. They saw that record and they were like, oh, we're full in. And they went out and got Stephon Gilmore. Yeah. And for a team that does not have a lot of assets, you can't make that kind of a move. And it's coming back to bite them. The Panthers have probably the least amount of draft picks in the league. I think they're back to their normal amount, the 7 this year, but they have not had their normal amount of picks for a long time. And we're seeing a very similar version of that with the Giants now, because they're the old regime that was making all those trades and making all these moves. They cost them so much. Like they do have, correct me if I'm wrong, they have 2 first-round picks this year, right?
I think they have the Bears. No,
Yeah, the Bears. Or was that last? That was just last year. So no, they don't have.
I think they just have one.
2.
Yeah,
so they just have their normal picks, and they have no cap to spend. So they have just the base amount of assets that you can have, and they're nowhere even near building a contending team. So I feel like we're going to see pretty much this entire Giants team get overloaded at some point. I don't see any franchise cornerstones on this team.
Yeah, I still think the Giants are in a really bad spot. I mean, as we said, 2-0 start, but no salary cap. You have a good amount of, you have your picks. You don't have 2 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks to build around, and no one's taking on these bad contracts. You're going to have to cut these people. And I mean, they cut the one guy who was actually kind of playing up to his contract last year in James Bradbury. So that's just kind of funny to me. But Kenny Golladay, probably the worst wide receiver signing in NFL history. Or one of them, top 5. So in conclusion, we both just do not believe in the Giants. And Giants fans, I'm sorry, but you guys are not real. You have a couple more years to go. Another team that I just want to laugh about for a couple minutes, the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Flacco's elite. Like, it's that simple. But no, seriously. The one thing that was funny after this game that I realized was that Nick Chubb touchdown at the end of the game, where he didn't slide and he went in to score the touchdown. A lot of Cleveland Browns fans were blaming Nick Chubb for the loss, which I just thought was really funny. I mean, fantasy owners probably weren't, but you can't blame a guy like that. I mean, after that touchdown, they had a 99.5% chance to win that game, and they lost it.
Blame a guy for scoring 3 touchdowns in a game. That's why you lost.
Exactly.
No, you lost because of the stupid fucking elf on the middle of the field. That's why you lost. You lost because you had an elf as your logo and then some giant dog sitting out front of your thing, some plastic dogs with some red eyes. What is this team? What is the front office doing?
Your weird fan base that just makes rapish jokes on tailgates. It's weird.
Everybody's seen the picture of the mannequin with the heart on. Yeah. Fuck the Browns fans, dude. I can't with this franchise. I'm so happy they lost that game. They deserve to lose that game. But just to evaluate the Jets a little bit, move away from the shit hole that is Cleveland. Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, they're certified. They are those guys.
I love Garrett Wilson.
Weapons for a long time. Garrett Wilson is so good. The Jets
Stephon
defense
Diggs 2.0.
still not good. Yeah, I don't hate that.
You said Jets defense still not good?
Yeah, no, it's still not good. You can't allow 31 points to Jacoby Brissett. You can't do it.
Yeah, their defensive line looks like complete trash right now. I mean,
you need somebody on the interior.
Their bright side is their cornerback duo, and they're both young, so at least they have that to build around. But the Jets, as you said, if they want to have a complete defense, you need somebody in that interior. I mean, Nick Chubb literally made them look silly the whole game. 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. What else do you need to prove that point?
You're hoping Quinnen Williams is that guy, but he's more of a pass rusher than he is a real nose tackle. I mean, nose tackles are not that hard to find in the NFL. Like DJ Reader, you don't hear much about DJ Reader, but he's probably he's elite at his position. There's a lot of guys like that. It's not a horrible thing to fix. I think that the Jets are going in the right direction. Got a lot of nice pieces on their defense. They just need a few more pieces in some key spots, like a safety, because they're kind of weak at the safety spot. Could use a slot corner, maybe another linebacker and somebody on the interior. But it's not, like you said, there's a lot of pieces on this team, but they're not there just yet. So that's kind of where I'm at with them. But it's funny watching Flacco start games. He will not take a hit, just won't do it. This dude is so, I mean, I get it. He's 42. He's trying to look good still. He's trying to not have brain damage. He just won't take the hit. The ball will just be flying anywhere on the field. No bodies will touch him. It's hilarious to watch it happen. But I mean, it's kind of worked. They're 1-1, and it's the Jets. How much more
Can't
can you
blame them.
ask for?
Can't blame them.
Yeah.
If you're a Jets fan, you definitely are excited right now. I mean, all of your young pieces look like they can be top five at their position, in my opinion. I think, well, I'm not talking about Zach Wilson. I'm talking about your cornerback one in Sauce Gardner. And I think Garrett Wilson is going to be a top five wide receiver very soon. I mean, his route running is elite. And he just reminds me of Stephon Diggs, if I'm being completely honest. I think the guy is going to be extremely elite. I mean,
He's got a mix of Diggs and McLaurin. It's really interesting because he's got the tracking that McLaurin has where he can just get any ball that's thrown his way, no matter where it is.
And he has the route running skills of Diggs. I think so. I mean, he looks incredible off the line. So it's definitely something that Jets fans are going to have fun watching for a very long time. I mean, that Jets wide receiver room is just like so fun. Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson. I love Braxton Berrios. And then they're kind of just paying Corey Davis like $40 million. But
I like Corey. He's cool.
Yeah, I like Corey Davis too. He was always good at Madden. But yeah, that's definitely something to root for if you're a Jets fan. Their front office is making a lot of good moves recently.
All right, I know this is kind of like a weird tangent to go on, but I am Corey Davis's biggest supporter. If Corey Davis has no fans, I am dead. He has never had an actual quarterback in his career. This dude was a top 6 pick, and it was Mariota, Tannehill, and Flacco, and a few games of Zach Wilson. Maybe, yeah, he's not going to put up the numbers with those guys, but he still had 1,000-yard season. There's nothing. I'm not saying Corey Davis is much better than people think that he is, but I think he's a fairly decent player. Some people act like he's the worst wide receiver in the league. I think he's a good player. I like Corey.
I think he could be very good in a system like the Packers. He needs just a good quarterback. And
how many times on this
podcast
are we just going to say, yeah, what Packers need a wide receiver? Are they
I'm going to shift to the Packers real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sold on them. That Bears game, when I was watching that game, the Bears were competitive with them. I still think Justin Fields looked decent. I mean, I'm not taking the Packers offense looking good and Sammy Watkins looking good against the Bears secondary right now. There's just a lot of question marks on that offense for me. I mean, yes, Aaron Jones looked very good. AJ Dillon looks decent, but it's the Bears. The Bears were supposed to be the worst team coming in the league this year. And I feel like a lot of Packers fans were like, there's the Packers we know. Beating up on the Bears, you should beat up on the Bears. And the game was competitive for a lot of it until the start of the fourth quarter. So I got to see a complete game from the Packers and the Packers defense against a really good team before I think this team can win the division. I still think the Vikings are going to win the division even after Monday night, but I don't know. I have to see a good win first.
I just need somebody to believe in the Packers. I need one person to step up in that wide receiver room. Just one. Not none of them have shown to me that they can be a consistent weapon for Aaron Rodgers. And if nobody can be a consistent weapon when the going gets tough and Aaron Rodgers needs to find somebody for a first down, for a touchdown at the end of the game to move the sticks, whatever, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that guy. I think genuinely right now, his idea or his first read on that would be Aaron Jones. And yeah, Aaron Jones is a great player, but he's a running back, and that's not really exactly the type of guy that's going to move the chains in a big situation for you. And then after that, it's AJ Dillon, another running back. And after that, Bob Tunyon. There is not a lot of explosive plays on this team, which is why I'm excited to see what does Christian Watson turn into this year. I think that he can eventually be a fairly good player. He's got all the tools, and he's in a position with a great quarterback. However, they need him now. And he's coming out of, D3 football right away? Literally just from North Dakota State, this guy's coming in, trying to play in the NFL for the Packers. That's a huge jump to make. So I don't think you're wrong in saying that you're not sold on the Packers for this season. But there's a lot to like. The defense is incredibly good. The coaching is insanely good. The special teams, they started to figure that out. Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. They've got an incredible offensive line when they're healthy. The running back group is great. They've got a fairly good tight end, and they just need some wide receivers. I mean, wide receivers are plentiful right now. Go find anybody. You can literally find anybody. And I mean, I guess it's kind of what they try to do with Christian Watson and Romeo Dubs, but I feel like there's also more people than that. I know I'm saying find anybody, but like go find. We talked about on the last episode. Go get Terry McLaurin. Those were the
There were
guys that
so
were
many
available.
options. There were so many options available. I mean,
exactly. That's what I'm trying to say here.
My whole point with the Packers, bringing in these rookie wide receivers, it's never worked, like right off the bat. With every single example of a wide receiver they've ever had, it always comes in their second or their third year. They have to learn to adjust to the Packers way. One guy that I really don't understand they didn't go out and get, they wouldn't have to give up anything, really, Amari Cooper. The man put up 100 yards and a touchdown last week with Jacoby Brissett as his quarterback. So I think he would have been a great fit next to Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers failed him this offseason with that type of stuff. I mean, I don't trust this wide receiver core against a good defense in the playoffs, if I'm being honest. And that's just that. I mean, I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's top 3 all time. But a quarterback needs elite weapons to go the full mile.
Like, what are
especially
they
with a guy like Aaron Rodgers? I mean, he throws the best ball in like football. It's just like crazy. You should have. How many more years I'm not trying to go back to him, but like Amari Cooper, how many more years in his contract? Does he have 1, 2?
That's the thing. I think it's probably 3. I think it's about 3 years, $60 million. And the issue with the Packers is they don't like to pay players. They just they don't like to do it. But they were willing to do it with Devontae Adams, which is why I feel like if there's guys who are fairly similar to Devontae Adams in talent wise, which nobody is Devontae Adams. He's probably the second best wide receiver in the league behind Tyreek Hill. But there were guys on that level. Like, I'll go back to it again, DK and Terry McLaurin. Those guys are top 10 wide receivers that were available this offseason, and you would have just had to pay them. That's really all you would have had to do. Or, like you want to say, if you want to go
A.J.
the cheap
Brown.
route, go Amari Cooper. A.J. Brown's another one. Like, Amari Cooper is a guy that got moved for nearly nothing. All they need to do was pay him. And if you were willing to do it with Devontae Adams, which everybody says they were, they offered the contract for Devontae, then why aren't you willing to do it for anybody else? Like, you understand the value in it, which is why you're willing to give it to Devontae Adams, but you're not willing to do it just because he says no. Like, just because Devontae won't do it, you're not going to get anybody. That confuses me a little bit, and I'm sure it confused Aaron Rodgers too.
The thing is, imagine DK on this offense too. Like, it would literally be a match made in heaven. But I just looked up Amari Cooper's contract, and it literally just makes my point. I mean, they owe him $20 million this year, and it's $15 million, and it drops to $10 million, and then $6 million. So I mean, salary cap isn't real in the NFL. There's always ways around it.
You can push it back, but the Packers don't like doing that. They'll never push their salary cap back. They're the one team that just hates doing it, and I think they're
never going to win. It's just that. And at the end of the day, what are you trying to do? We always talk about this. The Packers go into every season, they want to win a lot of regular season games, but as we're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, what's your goal here? What we're talking about with Nick Foles, what's your goal? Your goal is to win the big game. Your goal is not to set the record for most franchise regular season wins. Your goal isn't to make the second round, especially when your guy is Aaron Rodgers. If you're going to want to win, you have to make those moves that might make your organization feel a little uncomfortable. But I'd rather my organization feel uncomfortable for a few months and make my franchise quarterback really fucking happy. And you know what? With Aaron Rodgers, he can't blame the Packers for Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams did not want to be there. But Aaron Rodgers can blame them for not going out there and trading for a wide receiver in a wide receiver market that was probably the biggest of all time. I mean, how many elite wide receivers got moved this offseason? 3, 4? Like
that.
And how many? There was more available. So Packers failed him. That's just my opinion on that. I mean, if you want to win, you have to make some moves that make you feel uncomfortable. Look at the Rams. They finally won. I still think, and we agree on this, the Rams aren't that good this year, but they got their ring. Aaron Rodgers got his ring 10 years ago now, 12 years ago now. Like, there's a whole generation of Packers fans who haven't seen that. So they're just wasting it. Make your quarterback happy. If your quarterback is happy, especially a guy like Aaron Rodgers, the sky is the limit. I mean, he was happy last season, and he had a bad, that bad luck with the playoffs. But I don't know. It pisses me off. It really pissed me off if I was Aaron Rodgers, because the teams were basically saying, "You want an elite wide receiver? Here, take your pick," and they didn't. So they got a first round pick out of Devontae, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team or a franchise that runs it like a business because they're a public
There's
company.
no GM.
Exactly. They're a public company. They've got stakeholders.
No owner.
They're doing all that, and I think that might have played a factor into it because bringing in Amari Cooper for I think it's about $60 million for 4 years, maybe a little bit more. That's not really a great business decision. Is Amari Cooper's return on value going to be that 60 million or more? That's something that a lot of times you're not willing to take that risk on in a business setting, which is what separates business from sports. And we talked about this on the last podcast. There needs to be the one voice, and it's normally the owner, who says, yeah, we're ready to compete. It's time to screw the business decisions. We're making the football decisions now. They will never make that call because there's nobody in the building to make that call. It frustrates the hell out of Aaron Rodgers. That was the whole premise of his offseason holdout last year, was because the Packers will not live and respect their players. They run it like a business. And in a capitalism society, you cannot, you're not going to have a business where it's beneficial for both society or for both groups. The players are going to lose out on, in this case, it's going to be money for contracts and long-term accolades when it comes to rings. And the organization is going to lose out on those rings as well, but they're going to make more money. And it's why the Packers have historically been one of the most profitable organizations in the sport by far. It's almost bar none. The Packers, the Cowboys are one of the only ones in that same range.
I mean, yeah, it takes literally, I think it's over 20 years to be on the season ticket holder list, or longer, like 50 years I saw a couple of times. But going back, this is my final point with the Amari Cooper thing. And I agree with you. Running a business is a lot different than running a sports team because you're looking at it more from a financial aspect. But what was it? A 5th round pick that they had to give up? 6th round pick, something like that? 5th and a 7th. Amari Cooper has had in his last 4 years 2 1,000-yard seasons. Last year put up 865 yards, 8 touchdowns in 14 games. And they could have given that up. He's still 27 years old. So
he's 28.
28, but we round down here. But it just doesn't make sense. And the Packers need to show me something before I really believe. Last season was my last year buying in on the Packers. It was the last dance. The thing that held them back last year, I mean, yeah, they addressed the special teams. That was good. Should have addressed it last year if this was going to be the last dance with the best duo in football. So, I don't know. The Packers pissed me off, and I love Aaron Rodgers, and that's why it pisses me off. He was my first favorite player on a non-Philadelphia team. But moving on, the Eagles.
Speaking of
the Eagles, wow. This offense, it looked fantastic. One thing that I think changed a lot was they finally have an identity. They know what they want to do. They know how they're going to do it. And Jalen Hurts, the difference is amazing from this year to last year. The confidence level. I mean, the shrug to the crowd. What else could you ask for? They're using. This is the big thing that I like about this offense, especially with the wide receivers. Every wide receiver has their role. And I really like that. Quez Watkins is your deep ball guy. A.J. Brown is your everything. I mean, I don't care what the Eagles say. There's one Batman on this team, and it is A.J. Brown. The other two are Robins, and that is fine to be A.J. Brown's Robins. But they have a way, and they're going to stick with it, and you can't really adjust around it, especially with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who was literally tugging linebackers into the end zone on Monday night. It was really insane to watch, and the Eagles don't get hurt. I think it's the only team that really stands in their way are the Bucs.
Yeah, in the NFC for sure.
And the NFC,
I don't disagree with that. The Eagles, they looked incredible on Monday night. And the offensive line has been for the past 3 years and will continue to be the best in the league. That's something that I feel like is getting completely overlooked. The Eagles' offensive line has been the best in the league since they won the Super Bowl and a little bit before that too. Like, it's just every single year. It's not the same guys every year that they're putting out, but every single season, the Eagles' offensive line always ranks towards the top of the league. It's incredible. This guy, his name has been mentioned on here more than any other time, any other podcast in history. Jeff Stoutland, guy's a king when it comes to knowing how to design an offensive line. I think that is really getting overlooked right now. But like you were saying, adding those kind of weapons for a guy like Jalen Hurts, those 3 weapons in AJ Brown, Smitty, and Quez Watkins is absolutely it's so dynamic. It opens up so much of the field, and Dallas Goedert as well. And then you got your chain mover there and Zach Pascal, who, I mean, you want to talk about Batman and Robin. No, it was another one.
It's like Nightwing.
Nightwing. Fair enough. Like, he's got those little things that he does, and it's just like, yeah, he's all right. He moves the chains. He had the 4th down catch. He does the small things, and that's what they brought him in to do. Like you were saying, so much on this offense. Every little tiny piece of this offense is perfected at this point, because this is a team that's been worked on for 3 seasons in a row. Like, most of the time, teams, if it doesn't work, they blow it up. The Eagles they just kept building on what they had. They saw some things to like with Jalen Hurts in the beginning, which nobody else did. A lot of teams out there and a lot of people and analysts out there, Jalen Hurts isn't him. He's a 20 to 25 quarterback in the NFL. He's not going to ever be a starter or a competent starter. Now we're starting to see him hitting things over the middle, which was the biggest thing. He had no confidence to be a pocket passer and hit things over the middle. Now he's hitting that over the middle. I think it was 4 for 5 for like 46 yards was his over the middle between 10 to 20 yards. And then there was the deep ball over the middle to Quez Watkins for the touchdown. You were not seeing that before. That's going to open up so much of this offense, and it's all coming together like a puzzle right now. All these pieces are starting to fit. And like we talked about the wide receiver room being great and how it's so diverse. It's like a basketball team. You've got your big center getting the rebounds and AJ Brown and getting all the physical dirty work done. You've got your power forward and Zach Pascal setting the screens, setting that stuff up, working the offense. You've got your deep, your 3-point shooter in Quez Watkins, who's just launching it from deep. And you've got Smitty just working the mid-range. He's nice with it. It's an artwork with Smitty. He's DeMar DeRozan on the basketball court. Like, everything about that wide receiver room is just perfectly constructed. And shout out to Howie Roseman for that, because this is the same exact guy that had a wide receiver room just last season of Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and Devontae Smith. That was their wide receiver room last season. Now it's one of the better ones in the league. So shout out to Howie Roseman, shout out the Eagles offense, and shout out Nick Sirianni for developing this offense to what it is today.
I agree with every word you just said. And the other thing that comes to mind with just sports teams in general, they seem to just love each other. And that's huge, especially in football. I mean, they look like they're just having a great time out there. Everyone's behind everybody. I don't know if you saw, but Malata, he has to be held back every single time that a defensive lineman hits Jalen Hurts too hard. He literally wants to go and rip their head off. And I mean, we were talking about the offensive line. Knock on wood, this offensive line's healthy too. I mean, Lane Johnson looks pretty damn healthy. And your game plan to this team is so hard to adjust to now, especially if Jalen Hurts keeps his pocket presence up, because what is your game plan? Is there a game plan for this team if he keeps this pocket presence up? No, I don't think so. I really don't think so, especially with the weapons, and again, it's only week 2, but against the Vikings secondary, that's awful. But if Jalen Hurts keeps this up, I do not see any single team in the NFC stopping them, except the Bucs. The Packers defense is going to be a very tough matchup and a very prove-it moment, because, when you look at the Eagles' schedule, it's kind of a cakewalk. And then you have a few good games mixed in there. You got the Saints defense, you have the Packers defense. But as I said, if he keeps this up, there's no defense stopping them or learning how to adjust to them in this game.
I like that point. We were talking before about the Dolphins and how if they start bringing a safety into the box, Tua is going to have a hard time to deal with that because the middle of the field that's been schemed open right now because you can't let the guys go deep, it won't be there anymore, and he's going to have to hit those hole shots. That's identical to what we saw on the Quez Watkins touchdown. The safety dropped to cover the linebacker in the middle of the field. Quez Watkins broke down the field on a post route, wide open. It was more of a miscommunication on the defense, but it's essentially the same exact thing. Safety dropped, coverage is no longer there. There's an open shot down the field. He's just got to hit it. Jalen Hurts, before this, a lot of people did not believe that he could hit that shot. But honestly, obviously, he hit it. But looking at that ball and the trajectory of the ball and the zip that he put on a ball 53 yards down the field, that really tells me that he's got the arm strength to consistently do that. That ball was not short. It did not hang in the air. It did not, there was no like loop on it. It wasn't a lollipop or anything like we see from Tua where his ball shoots up into the air and then it dive bombs down. No, this ball was on a line. It was on a laser. It looked like something that Josh Allen threw. So that is really, really exciting for me. You're not going to be able to play that the same way you're playing the Dolphins, which, like you said, how do you game plan? If you can't do that, then what? Because, I don't know.
Really you gotta wish and you gotta pray. But my last point on Jalen Hurts, the man puts in work. And if you're going to pay somebody, I have no problem paying this guy. Not yet, but if this keeps up, he's going to get a hell of a contract, and shout out him for that. But that's really all I have for last week. One final thing I'll point out: Zeke sucks, but he looked terrible. I mean, he had back-to-back exact stat lines, back-to-back weeks, which I kind of thought was kind of funny. Same amount of yards. But one thing, that was really my last point with last week. But coming up this week, it's kind of a sucky schedule. There's not really a lot of good games. I mean, my favorite games, I got the Bills versus Finns. I got the Eagles versus Washington only because it's their first game against Carson Wentz, and I'm looking forward to that just as a football fan. And I got Brady versus Rodgers, obviously. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Aaron Rodgers against this defense and Tom Brady against this defense. I think it's going to be a defensive game. It's going to be two of the best minds to ever play the game. And when do you not look forward to that?
It's funny. It's going to be a defensive game with two of the best quarterbacks of all time. I don't disagree, though. I mean, the weapons are going to be very short in this game. There's going to be no Mike Evans. There's probably not going to be Julio Jones. Obviously, no Devontae Adams anymore. No Chris Godwin. We're going to be seeing Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Sammy Watkins, and Scotty Miller, Russell Gage, and maybe they call up Cole Beasley before the game. I don't know if
what's his name? Perriman? I didn't see that.
Rashad Perriman, yes.
Yeah, so
I like Rashad Perriman. He makes one good catch a year, but he already had that last week, so it's not happening again.
It's going to be a run heavy game, I think so. But I'm really obviously when you have two of the best to ever do it going against each other, when do you not look forward to that game? But if I'm being honest, the game I'm looking forward to the most would have to be Miami versus the Bills because this is a true test to me about Miami. As I said, I was high on them coming into the season, but they don't have to win this game. They just can't pull the Titans. Like that's
Miami.
They have to be competing.
I'm going to say that because literally based off the entire thing I've been saying this episode, the Bills play 98% too high safety. That is exactly what the Dolphins want to expose is too high safety. Maybe the Bills will adjust, but it's week 3, and I don't know if the teams have picked up on it. So like you said, this is going to be a very good test, but if the Bills do not adjust, I absolutely see a way that the Dolphins can come out of here with a huge win.
I agree with you on that, but I feel like it's more of a test for the defense, if anything, for Miami. I think Miami's offense will always look decent with the way they run it. And, obviously teams will adjust, but as you said, it's week 3. So you're not really making those types of adjustments yet, but Miami's offense let Lamar Jackson kill them, like straight up murder them last week. And now you're going against the best quarterback, top 2 in the league right now with Well, I think Stephon Diggs is top two, top three too right now. So this is a test, and they can stay competitive. And you have them winning, and that's bold. I like it. They're real, and if they win this game, I think they're top three in the AFC, top four.
The only issue that I have with the Dolphins is their defense is not the same without Brian Flores. I like they're trying to do the same blitz packages that they were doing. Like they're still blitzing at the same rate as they were with Brian Flores. It's not as efficient. Like Lamar Jackson, everybody thought that Lamar Jackson got figured out by the Dolphins last season because he was terrible against the blitz. He just couldn't perform against the blitz. He was the worst quarterback in QBR against the blitz last season. He started 10 for 10 with I think 2 touchdowns against the blitz against the Dolphins on Sunday. So. And that was similar to their first week as well, where their blitz was very ineffective. Where I think that there might be some issues with this defense this year, where they start allowing a lot of points because they're going to be gassed with the offense scoring as much as it is. And if they're not having that same success with those exotic packages, their defense doesn't have the talent to make up for that. They're like it's not an ultra talented defense. It's just been one that's performed very well because they've had a great defensive coordinator as a head coach, really. A lot of people thought that would stay the same because they kept the same defensive staff, but I've been saying it the whole time. I think Brian Flores is really one of those – he's just one of those guys who, no matter who he has out on the field, his scheme is going to be incredible, and you can't replicate that without him in the building.
I agree, but, I mean, one thing I do have to say about the Dolphins is they adjusted after the first half, and they did look better on the defensive side, but –
I think Lamar Jackson just missed a few shots in the second half, if I'm being honest.
I think, I don't know. I still think the defense is good. I think it could be good, but I have to see them do legit things against Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen to really
if you're expecting
put them over the edge.
Things against Stephon Diggs, Xavier Howard got cooked by Rashad Bateman, who I love Bateman, but he's not Diggs. He's not Diggs yet. So he let up 7 catches for 104 yards and a touchdown to Rashad Bateman. This is a guy who a lot of Dolphins fans want to put him in the top 3. You're killing us for not putting him in our list. So I'm just saying there's a lot of things that we're kind of counting on because we've seen it be great before, but we've seen it be great before with Flores. We've never seen it with this current staff.
Yeah, it's only 2 games in, though, for the defensive scheme. I just am, as I said, they don't have to win this game to prove anything to me, but they just have to look competitive against the best team in the league defensively and on offense. But I'm really looking forward to that game. That's my you know what? If I'm going to get – it's in Miami, if I'm not wrong. I think it is.
It is indeed in Miami.
I think coming off of these 2 wins, as you said, I don't know. It's really hard, though, especially right now to put someone up against the Bills. But if they're smart with the ball, I could definitely see them winning. I could definitely see that. I mean, the one thing that really holds Miami back right now is, I mean, the running back duo is decent, but I think I feel like they need more. They don't even need a superstar in that offense for that running back. They just need a more of a scheme fit. I mean, they brought these 2 guys in to be scheme fit, but I feel like the best 49ers, obviously, the 49ers run game was always, a mix of a couple guys, and you can't make Tyreek Hill run the ball. He too. I mean, he's playing. He had that 1 touchdown or that 1 catch that should have been intercepted too. So he's playing cornerback. He's playing wide receiver. Can't have him playing running back too. He'll be gassed by the end of it. But I need to see. Go ahead.
The way the Niners do it with their running backs is very interesting. They go by matchup instead of just having a starting running back that's just a consistent running back. They just cycle them all in. Like if you're playing a team with faster linebackers, you play for Raheem Mostert because he'll just outrun those guys because he's the fastest guy in the league. You're playing a bunch of bruisers. You just kind of they just mix and match. I don't want to go through all the list of the Niners running backs because there's like 8 different guys a season that they put in, but there's always a different guy every week, which is why it sucks for fantasy and nobody's ever been able to get a real beat on it. But if you take a look and you look at the matchups, you start to see a little bit of a trend there where, and it's the same thing with the Dolphins. Raheem Mostert got 16 carries last week because they were playing the Ravens, who did not have good linebackers, and he's a guy that can expose teams with bad linebackers. So
yeah, I mean, again, Mike McDaniel's the one that incorporated all of that, so that's why I really think that they should just start doing it again in Miami because it worked very well, and especially when now you have the fastest wide receiver duo. I mean, come on, but I'm really excited for this game. And you know what? I'll say Miami wins too. That's my prediction. I'm going Miami, and I wouldn't say it's a shootout, but I think it covers the over. If that's a
100%.
good prediction.
I 100%
Let
think
me
it covers the over.
I want to look at the line. Dolphins.
I mean, I can see a way where I guess it could be a bit of a defensive game if they make those adjustments, but if it's like a 53.5 or something like that, I'm
It's
taking
53.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Did I get that? That's okay. All right,
So,
yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
taking
I
that.
definitely think it's going to be the over. I'm really excited for that game. I said that 5 times, but I'm going to be tuned in. There's not really that many good games this week. I mean,
Yeah,
as
no,
I
I'm
just
looking
said,
at this, and there's not. Honestly, I don't know if it's not that there's not good games. There aren't any games that I feel comfortable with picking for sure. Like, we're
100%.
about to get into our locks in a minute here, and I'm starting to look at it. And the one that I was very comfortable with was the Chargers over the Jags, right? Well, Justin Herbert's not playing this week, so now they're Well, he's got
Is he
the
not?
fractured rib. He's day to day. He's not practicing right now, so if he's not practicing on Friday, he probably won't be playing on Sunday. And there's all the news is that Chase Daniels is taking the first team reps as their quarterback this week.
The GOAT.
Yeah, I mean, I had no clue he was on the Chargers. The dude's he's played for every team. But yeah, that's another team that I can't make that lock anymore. But yeah,
If I had to give 4, what do you
wanna
do?
get into
Want
the
to do
locks
3
now?
or 5? Want to do 3 or 5 locks?
You give out however many you feel comfortable with, because I'm keeping track of it. Whoever's got the better record at the end is the winner.
I got the Saints over the Panthers. That's my one lock.
Mhm.
I got the Jets over the Bengals. I got the Chiefs over the Colts. And I don't know. Man, I was going to say 49. You know what? 49ers over Broncos. It's kind of hard, but I think that's going to happen. I don't like the Broncos. I think they suck. I think Nathaniel Hackett's not good. I mean, the Texans should have beat them last week. If the Texans were any better, they would have.
I agree. I'm gonna lock the Chargers still. Herbert or no Herbert, I don't care. It's the Jags. I don't feel like they played that good of a game last week, and I trust the Chargers against the Jags. I feel like they're not going to start the year 1-2. I want to lock. I agree with you on 49ers over the Broncos. Nathaniel Hackett is not an NFL head coach. I'll just put that out there. A guy that's citing Austin Powers in his pregame speeches is not a guy I want as my coach. He's next to Russell Wilson. He's probably the corniest guy in the NFL, which is not something that I think that a lot of these players are a fan of. Like it's okay when you're winning. If you're 2-0, 3-0, you go in there and your coach is a fucking cornball. Who cares? You're winning games. But when you're losing, you're not putting up points, and your coach is making the wrong decision, like kicking 64-yard field goals with a minute left in the game and just running the clock down. That's when it starts to become a problem. So I've got the Chargers. I've got the Niners. I am going to lock the Eagles this week, and I'm going to lock the Ravens. Oh, this is the one that I was very 50-50 on, was Ravens Patriots, so I want to lock that. I am going to say yes. I do want to lock the Ravens over the Patriots. So I got Ravens, Eagles, Chargers, and 49ers.
All right.
We'll check back next week. And we unfortunately did not get to do our locks last week. We were pressed for time. So week 2 is going to be voided. But at the end of the year, we'll have we'll post the final score and see who had a better lock record.
I love it. Well, great episode. Guys, thank you so much. This is the CCSN podcast. Make sure to follow us on social media on Instagram and Twitter. I'm Chris at CCSN on Twitter. And Chase, what's yours again?
At Chase CCSN.
All right. Guys, thank you so much. Have a great week. And let's enjoy another week of football, guys. Enjoy.